Are we ready, ladies and gentlemen? Are we ready? Are we ready to learn Torah?
What is it like when you kick a goal? Can you do that?
In South America. Here it sounds like gold. In South America is when they go crazy. Gold. Okay, tonight we're looking at the ninth commandment. We're getting there. Wow, can you believe it? We started last year for the ninth commandment. So let's take a look. Let's start on false witness. So let's go to page 413. 413. Actually, it starts on page 411. Okay, verse 13. Got it? Buddy, would you like to read it?
413. You shall not kill, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness against your fellow.
Okay, you shall not bear false witness. So leseana l'reyacha. Reyacha means your fellow man. Okay, it doesn't say lo achicha to your brother, which we find many times in the Torah, but here it says l'reyacha to your fellow man. We'll see the significance of that. Here in the Ten Commandments, in the book of Exodus, it clearly says that we should not bear false witness. Let's go to page 971, where the Ten Commandments is repeated by Moshe Rabbeinu in the 40th year to the generation that is going into Israel, many of whom were born in the desert and did not experience the revelation at Sinai. So here, we're going to go through this maybe in a couple of weeks. We're going to notice that there are many differences. Some of them are subtle, some of them are not so subtle. They're very simple. Let's take a look, verse 17, page 971.
You shall not kill, and you shall not commit adultery, and you shall not steal, you shall not bear vain witness against your fellow.
That's right, vain. In Exodus, it says, Leisan Avarecha, what does it say?
Aid sheker.
Aid sheker. Aid means testimony, a witness. Sheker. Sheker means a lie. Here in Deuteronomy, it doesn't say aid sheker. It says aid shav. Shav means, like we learned, don't use God's name in vain. Leisisa shem Hashem alekecha lashav means in vain, which would seem to suggest that there's a biblical prohibition, not just for saying a lie, for one to testify in a fabrication, but as long as it's vain. What does that mean? How do we understand that? Let's go to page 435, checking on the various prohibitions. 435. We want verse 7.
Distance yourself from a false word. Do not execute the innocent or the righteous, but shall not exonerate the wicked.
Okay, so here it says, midbar sheker, tirchak. Tirchak means distance, stay far away from a devar sheker. Sheker means that which is false. A devar means a word. Distance yourself from a false word. So this is, by the way, this is talking about not just testimony, but anybody lying, telling a lie where it's not for a constructive purpose. What would be a constructive purpose for a lie?
Shalom.
Shalom bias. Like when your wife says, does this make me look heavy? And you say, oh my, you look stunning. Whatever. I see nobody's laughing at this. Okay, let's move on. Let's move right on. A little bit too close to home without.
They get dressed and then they walk out. They like what they got on. What, do you like this?
Of course, it's magnificent. I couldn't think of a more beautiful outfit. Can't answer you right now. I gotta go down. All right, so to say or something that's not true is a biblical problem. Certainly as a testimony. Here too, we see that a person, we should distance ourselves from a false word. Let's go to page 433, one page before. All right, I gotta take that joke out of my repertoire. It's coming out. Okay, 433, we want verse 1, chapter 23.
Do not accept a false report. Do not extend your hand with the wicked to be a venal
Mhm.
witness.
Right, okay. So this says, do not accept a false report. Here too, the Torah is telling us a report. Report from who? What? So somebody tells you a story, they tell you gossip or whatever, who knows what it might be? Maybe. But a false report means testimony. That a witness is not allowed to present a false report, and we're not allowed to accept it. It's interesting because the Hebrew here is loisisa shema shov, literally, do not elevate a false hearing. Something we should not hear, don't elevate it. So they translate, what does that mean? So they say it means that we'll see the courts should not accept it. The courts have reason to believe, suspect this is false. They won't accept this testimony. In addition, we won't elevate that which is false to be heard, meaning that if I know that what I'm saying is not truthful, I cannot say it and report it and present it as testimony because I will thereby be elevating it. In addition, this is a verse that is quoted that it is prohibited to accept and listen to Lashon Hara. There are other verses telling us that we should not speak Lashon Hara. Well, are we allowed to listen to it? No, because thereby we will be elevating something we shouldn't be hearing. Something we should not be hearing by listening to it and giving a person our attention, that is unacceptable. Lashon hara means gossip, speaking about someone else where it does not have any benefit, just for gossip. Okay? And that's the end of this verse. It says, so we should not accept a false report, and we should not extend our hand with the wicked to be a venal witness. What does that mean? A venal witness means not a truthful witness. We should not extend our hand with the wicked. What does that mean? What does that mean? I mean, if our testimony is truthful, so then I can testify. If my testimony is not truthful, what's the difference if I'm associated with someone else or not? What is this coming to teach us? So we went through now 5 of the verses that are presenting to us prohibitions in regard to a false testimony. So now we're going to take a closer look. We said that it's false testimony. We all know what that is. When we're lying, we're not being truthful. What is a vain? In Deuteronomy, it says, and don't be an aid shav. Don't be a witness in vain. What is that? So what happens if, let's say, someone testifies, but the testimony really is not going to have any consequences? And what they're saying is not truthful. They're testifying to the court, but it's of no consequence. It's not going to be something which is going to be beneficial or detrimental to either of the parties. Would that be included in the biblical prohibition? Now, the person is lying, so they must distance themselves from that which is false, so they transgress that. Will they also be transgressing that they're bearing a false witness?
Yeah.
Are they bearing a false witness?
Yes.
Because they're lying. But what if the lie in this case has absolutely no consequences?
Lashon hara.
But is it false witness?
Yes,
You say very firmly yes.
because
even if at that point in time, it has no bearing on the case, at some later point,
Right.
something might turn up that says, "Oh, but wait, this person said this."
Okay, let me give you an example. Let's say somebody comes and says, I am a witness that Ken Miller said that he is going to give $100 to Fred Lewis. I'm a witness. I saw it. I heard it.
Actually, it was to lend him $100.
Lend him.
That's not what he said.
Okay, now, okay, so you might say, what's wrong with that testimony? So now the courts will ask me and say to me, did I see the gift or the loan? No. All I'm testifying is what I heard. I heard that he said that he will do so. The courts will ask me another question. Was there anything binding? Was there some type of a transaction? Was there a handshake? Was there a document? Did Ken say, in the presence of these witnesses, I hereby obligate myself? No. Then my testimony is really inconsequential. Now, let's say I'm lying about the whole thing. Let's say it never happened. Would I thereby be a false witness? I'm lying, no question. It's a lie. Would it be false witness? In other words, the issue here is, do we say that a witness, before he could be false, has to present a testimony? It's only a testimony if it's something that the courts can act on. But if the courts can't act on it, that's not a testimony. So this happens to be a disagreement in Jewish law. Some say, everybody agrees it's wrong because it's lying. Some say it's being a false witness. Others say it's not being a false witness, but it's being a vain witness. So we really have two separate elements here. False witness is one whose testimony could be effective if it would be true, but he's lying. A vain witness is one who is lying, and he's lying about something which has no consequences at all. Okay, another question. I don't know if I spelled it right or not. I take no responsibility for my spelling. What if a person, this is what happens if a person is presenting testimony, but it's not to the detriment of anyone? It's not to the detriment. For example, somebody says, what would be a case? Well, here's a case. Somebody comes along and says, I'm here to testify that this person did not commit this crime. Two witnesses say they saw this guy break into the store and steal, and I'm coming with another witness, and we're testifying he did not. He was with us. When you say he happened on Monday morning, he was with us. And we're lying. We are lying. Will that be considered a false witness? Maybe a false witness is only a testimony that is coming to obligate something detrimental. If it's not detrimental, even though it's a lie, which we have to distance ourselves from, but maybe that is something different. So these are all questions in regard to the laws of testimony and the courts. So many say, there are some who say that if you're coming to be supportive and you're lying, that doesn't fall under the false witness. But you're testifying, but it's only, they say, when you're coming to testify something detrimental. But it's absolutely unacceptable. Yes.
I object to that, because what if he's saying that the guy wasn't there, but the guy committed a murder, and the witness is saying, oh, he couldn't have committed that murder because he was with us? That's a lie that.
That's a
has
detrimental to the,
to the community.
okay, objection sustained. Okay. All right, no, I'm just touching on it, not gonna go into it, I'm just showing these are areas in which there's a lot of halachic discussion. Okay? What happens if, let's say, someone comes along and they say, this piece of meat, or let's say let me back up. In Jewish law, in Judaism, we have many holidays. Our holidays are really determined by the day of the month. For example, Passover is always, the Paschal Lamb is always on the 14th of the month of Nisan. Following night, the 15th, is when we eat it. We have the Passover Seder. We eat it with the matzah and the maror. So how do we know when it's the 14th of the month? How do we know? Today we know we've established a calendar. Before this calendar was established, how did they know? There were witnesses who came every single month in Jerusalem to the Supreme Court, the Sanhedrin, and they would testify that they saw the first sliver of the moon. Now we know more or less when that's going to be visible, because we know today is day number 29 of the previous month, and there's only 29 and a half or a quarter days to the month. We know the new moon is going to be, but we have to proclaim the new month. How do we proclaim it? When witnesses came and they say to the courts, we saw the new moon. And they'll ask them questions. Where did you see it? What did it look like? And things as follows. When the courts accept that testimony, they thereby proclaim, it's Rosh Chodesh. We have this testimony. Tonight is going to be the first day of the month of Nisan, and therefore we know that 14 days later, it's time for the Paschal Lamb. So what happens if witnesses come and they say, we saw a new moon, and they're lying? Would that be considered biblical transgression of false testimony? Question is any time a courts require a testimony and it's not true, that falls under this category? Or maybe not. Why? Because the verse said, do not bear false witness against your fellow. Against your fellow. Why did it say that? Why did it just say, don't bear false witness? The answer is, if it's against your fellow, that's why some say only when it's to the detriment, when it's against your fellow. Or in this case, you're talking about a human being. If it's not directed to a person, talking about the moon, I lied, I'm a bad boy, no question about it. But to say that I bore a false witness against my fellow, I didn't. Maybe I didn't transgress that. Others say, I did. Why? Because that's also, in regard to a new moon, affecting every human being. How? Because if they're going to establish the new month based on my testimony, that means everybody's going to start observing Passover on the wrong day. Look what I've done to everyone. I've affected them. So here too, we have an interesting discussion. Okay, so we cannot bear false witness. Who is a witness? Who can be a witness? To be a proper witness and thereby subject to these prohibitions, one has to be qualified. What qualifies one to be a witness? If we're going to testify against a person or for a person, all relatives are disqualified. All relatives, okay? In-laws also disqualified. For that reason, whenever you need witnesses, a relative is no good. That's why. So how do people, when you're getting married, we have to have witnesses. They have to be kosher witnesses. Well, what are we talking about? Everybody's witnessing it, and you got your whole family is there. They're standing under the chuppah with you. That's why at a proper Jewish wedding, the witnesses are designated. They call the witnesses up by name, and they'll ask the groom that he should designate these two as his only witnesses, thereby legally excluding everyone else who might be seeing what's happening, but they are not the legal witnesses. The only legal witnesses are the two that are designated, and they cannot be related to either the bride, the groom, nor each other, nor can their wives be related, cannot have any relatives involved. In addition, person who is a thief, and if he has not yet corrected his ways, he's not acceptable to be a witness. So if we have somebody who we know is a thief and he comes and he wants to say, yeah, I saw this guy, I saw what he did, I saw the whole fight. Sorry, unacceptable. A person must be an adult. So even if we have a child who's brilliant and more mature than most of the adults, cannot accept the testimony. It's not legally acceptable. We can have an adult who maybe isn't the brightest person. Doesn't matter. As long as they're saying something of which they're mentally capable, it's acceptable. Person is not a thief, but a gambler. Person who is a gambler, that means I'm not talking about where you sit down and play mahjong for a couple of dollars or you play a game of poker here and there. Talking about people who do this on a regular basis. They are disqualified. They are not trustworthy. We cannot accept their testimony. All right, the courts, they have an obligation. We see the courts have an obligation because it said, do not accept a false report, or that which is not to be heard, don't accept it. We're talking about the courts. That is because the courts are charged with the mission to seek the truth. Justice depends on the truth. We want a just society, we must know the truth. Therefore, the courts, as we find in verses elsewhere in the Torah, the courts have an obligation to examine and interrogate the witnesses separately. They'll ask them all different types of questions. They want to know what day, of what week, what month, what was the weather, where were you standing, what did you see? They're going to ask a lot of questions that seem to be unimportant, but they're trying to find out if there can be conflicts in their stories. They are looking for an element of sheker. Sheker means a lie. They're looking to see if there's a trick. Because we're talking about someone testifying and saying, yeah, you owe him money. I do not. That's not true. Somebody comes along and is testifying, especially if it's something of a criminal nature. In addition, if they interrogate the witnesses and they see that their stories match perfectly, I mean, absolutely the same. Courts are going to go through this again. It appears as though this testimony has been rehearsed.
They have to answer within a second.
They've got to answer quickly, and if they're going to answer, everything is just they expect to see minute differences in their testimony because different people see things somewhat differently. It's absolutely perfectly harmonious, something's wrong. They have to make sure that what they are told is not going to in any way elevate deception. That's what it means. Do not elevate a false hearing. Cannot be elevated at all. They're going to have to really interrogate them. I mean, ask them questions. And if after all the questions, it's too perfect, they won't accept it. If it's too perfect, it's not kosher. Just can't be. Okay. Now, it says at the end of this verse, 23:1, we should not associate with a wicked person. What does that mean, that associate with a wicked person? Do not extend your hand with the wicked to be a venal witness. what happens if this wicked person, I believe, is telling the truth? I was there, I saw it. This wicked person, this thief, this gambler, this person, I happen to know is telling the truth. So I'm going to testify with him. The Torah is telling us it's prohibited for me to do that. I should tell the courts I'm not coming with him because he's unacceptable, and therefore I'm not. Now, what if I don't know he's unacceptable? That's different. The courts will tell me. So then what do we have? This person's testimony we don't accept. I'm testifying, yes, but I'm a single witness. And we'll see in a moment, a single witness is limited in what effect his testimony has. All right, so this is the court's responsibility. Let's take a look at the testimony itself. Let's go to page 561. And turn the pages. What do we want here? Chapter 5, verse 1. Okay.
Got it.
If a person will sin, if he accepted a demand for an oath and he is a witness, either he saw or he knew, if he does not testify, he shall bear his iniquity.
This is a biblical verse telling us it is a mitzvah for a person who knows they know it or they saw it. And the person is adjudicated. The person says, wait a minute, you were there. I want you to come and testify on my behalf. I don't want to get involved. Well, if we're going to have people not getting involved, we're not going to have justice. It's an obligation. We're obligated, it's a mitzvah, that the person, if he does not testify, will bear iniquity. Now, you don't see that by many prohibitions. Prohibitions who would usually say, come testify. Do not be a witness who refuses to testify. Here it says, will bear iniquity, telling us because this is going to the very foundations. This is a very important mitzvah for a person to testify.
What if a witness was threatened? You go and witness, we know you know the truth, but if you go and say anything, your life's extinct.
You have to tell that to the courts. You got to tell it to the courts. I'll put you in witness protection and send you to Savannah, Georgia. Okay? You have to tell it, or else we're going to be run by the mafia, right? And it's person's in a difficult situation. And you know what? Even if he doesn't testify, they're probably going to try to eliminate that witness anyway. All right, here it says that if he saw or knew, we'll see what that means in a moment. What happens if, let's say, a person, a witness, is told by somebody, the witness, this person didn't see. Reuven didn't see, but Reuven was told by somebody who is absolutely reliable, or his teacher, a pious sage, tells him, I want you to know, this is what I saw. I saw this. And he tells his disciple, and then the sage passes away. Can Reuven come to the courts and testify? Can't say I saw it. Can he say I know it? It says over here, if you saw or he knew, he saw or he knew, can he say I know it? What if a parent tells a child? Parents not going to lie to their own children. Why are you smiling? Parents don't lie to their own children. A parent tells them. What if somebody hears someone's statement on their deathbed? In American law, deathbed confession is very powerful. What if on someone's deathbed they say, I want you to know this person owes me money? Can we then go and say, yes, I heard him say on his deathbed, and I'm coming to testify? Will that be acceptable?
I would think so.
Okay, I'm gonna try not to be the retired attorney. But in the American courts, if it is a deathbed confession, it's something about you. what
That's a
you
confession, right?
think. That's a
Here,
confession.
but that's not the case here.
No, it's not.
Someone's deathbed says, I want you to know, please, this person owes me money and want you to have that knowledge so the family can get it. So that person then wants to go to court and wants to testify with another witness who also knows about it. Would that testimony be acceptable? Is that, the question is, are these cases, are they included when it says here, either he saw or he knew? Is that called that you know?
I think so.
You think so? You say no.
I say it's hearsay.
Yeah, only if two people are there at the deathbed and they both hear it.
And if they both hear it, and if a dozen people hear it, can they come to the court and they say, we heard him say that this, not he's no confession. I want you all to know that this person owes me this money. So the law is, it's unacceptable, it's hearsay. Well, aid me, PA. Aid me, PA, that's called knowing means I saw it or I know it. So what does it mean I know it? This is unacceptable, I don't know. Okay? What happens in this case? I say to some witnesses, listen, this guy owes me money and I can't get him, he's not going to pay up. I'm going to confront him. I want you to be hiding over there. I'm going to talk to him outside. I want you to be listening. I talked to him outside. I said, listen, enough of this game. You owe me $100. Let's talk about it. And he says, he doesn't know the witnesses are there. And this fellow says, yeah, I do owe you $100, but I don't have it. So, when I get it, we'll talk. Okay? The witnesses heard that. I take him to court the next day. These witnesses come into court and they say, we heard with our own ears. And not only that, we were able to see, we saw who it was who was talking. And we heard him. We saw when he came and we heard him. He said he owes $100. Is that acceptable? Now what do you say? Is that called they know?
Well, they heard it.
They heard it. Is that called they know it? They didn't see it. They heard it. Do they know it?
Wait a minute, you said they saw him.
They saw him. They saw me talking to him. They saw him. And then they went behind the door. And then they heard him say, yes, look, I owe you the money, but I don't have it. And we'll talk when I do. Can they then go into court and say, we know he owes the money? We heard him.
They don't know that he didn't pay the money after that.
They don't know that he didn't pay. Okay, that's very, very good. What else?
Were they supposed to have actually seen the original transaction?
No. They heard, they're testifying to the confession. They are not allowed to come and testify. They do not know. Number one, Ken is right. Maybe he paid him. Maybe all of a sudden he said, you know what, enough of this business. An hour later he paid. Okay. But the question is, I take him to court and I say, you owe me $100. And the guy says, I don't. I never borrowed from you $100. Not that I paid. I never borrowed. Really? I bring my witnesses. Did you hear him say that he borrowed an older $100? Yes, we did. Court say, how did you hear it? Well, we were hiding behind the door. Was he aware that you were there when he confessed? No. Then we throw the confession out. Maybe when he said, I owe you the money, he really didn't, but he just wanted to get rid of this guy. It's not a legally binding confession. You know when it's a legally binding confession? When the person, he says, in the presence of these witnesses, you tell him you owe me the money. And then he says, yeah, I owe the money. That's a confession. If you didn't know the witnesses are there, no good. So that's also not considered he knew. Didn't see, didn't know. So what does that mean? What happens if somebody, are you allowed to go to two witnesses? I said, Fred, Ken, listen, I know you don't know anything about it. Here's some money. I want you to come to the court as witnesses for me, so that this fellow who owes me money, I'm not even asking you to testify. I want you to come so that he should think that I've got witnesses, so I will scare him into a confession. Can I
Harry
do?
Mason does that all the time.
Stand too.
Yes. Lawyers and policemen, because they're allowed to lie. They're allowed to lie, but are we allowed to do it? No, we cannot do it. We cannot hire people to testify, even if it's just for the intent of scaring the litigant. Not allowed to do it. That's a devar sheker. We have to distance ourselves. Not allowed to do that. Now, the lawyers might play their games, but that doesn't mean anything.
But the guy who got the two people to come, maybe the reason he got them to come is he wanted them to see how he worked in court. Not to be just to be there.
You
just
can
to be
invite
present.
people to be there, but I'm talking specifically where he said, I'm going to pay you to come as witnesses. Now, if they call on you to testify, you could say, I'm not a witness. But I want to bring you in as a witness to scare the daylights out of this fellow. That you can't do. Anybody's allowed to go and sit in it. Well, not, it depends on the case. A lot of them are open. All right, what happens if a fellow comes, he knows this woman who was married, he knows that in the city where she was living, she was declared a single woman. She's single because she was divorced. But he isn't sure. He's not sure if she was divorced or widowed. So he's going to come in this new city where she's found, and he's going to say, yes, I'm from over there. And yes, I'm going to testify that she's widowed. Now, what's the difference if she's widowed or if she's divorced? Either way, I'm coming to testify she's not a married woman. I'm testifying she's not married. They ask why? He said, she's divorced. Truth is she's widowed. He doesn't know. Is that testimony acceptable? Is that false?
Of course, she should never get.
She hasn't got it. She lost it. She lost it. Okay? That is false witness. Okay? Even though you might say, what's the difference? His goal is to testify that she's single, she's not married. What's the difference if it's this way or that way? There is a difference. There is a difference. First of all, a divorced woman is not allowed to marry a
Go ahead.
Kohen. A widow is allowed to marry a Kohen. So it is a big difference. Well, what if she was really widowed and he just says she's divorced? And she's okay with that because she just wants to get on with her life. It's false testimony, unacceptable. Is a witness allowed to transmit or submit their testimony in writing? In Jewish law, can you write your testimony? Cannot do it. There's a verse that says, Al Pishnayim Edim, by the mouth of two witnesses. And we learn that they have to be present and you have to hear them, which is a big question. What about Zooming and things like that? You know, what we do during COVID, people can't come to courts or whatever it is. Person is sick, they're in a hospital. What they'll do is that they'll send people to the hospital and record their testimony. We must hear it directly from them. We cannot submit. Now, what if they don't speak the same language? Well, you can have somebody translating, and then they should understand, but they have to be there. The exception to that is a legal document. If there is a legal document, such as a bill of divorce, again, there the witnesses sign. On a legal document, when they affix their signatures, that's considered like a verbal testimony in the courts. But other than that, a legal document, when we need a testimony, it's got to be absolutely from their mouths. Okay. Single witness. One witness comes to court. The witness is none other Then Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses himself, he's coming into court because he saw what happened. And the courts are going to, Moshe's coming in and saying, I saw Ken loan $100 to Fred. I saw it. Fred says it didn't happen. It was a gift.
No, Fred said to Ken, okay, we'll accept it, but you've got to charge it to the ground and let the rain settle it.
I don't know what that means. All right. Fred says it was a gift. Fred says, and Ken says it was a loan. Here's Moshe Rabbeinu, and he says, I was there. It was a loan. What do the courts do? The courts say,
No.
Fred, you don't have to pay anything. But Moshe Rabbeinu, although we know that everything he says is truthful, we need a witness, and we only have one. A single witness is unacceptable in criminal cases or monetary cases. However, the courts will say, Fred, based on the testimony of the single witness, you don't have to pay. But you must take an oath that what you're saying is true. A single witness cannot require you to pay, but he can require you to verify through an oath your statement. There is an exception where a single witness is believed. A single witness is believed to say, I saw this woman's husband be killed. This happens, unfortunately, in the war and things like that. It happened in New York on 9/11 when so many people died in the World Trade Centers. Then people didn't know where's my husband? Where is he? The insurance companies didn't want to pay anything. As far as we know, he got on a plane, is in Hawaii. And the wife says, I haven't seen him. He went to work this morning in the World Trade Center and I haven't seen him. They can't find him. Insurance companies didn't want to pay. We don't know he's dead. Jewish law, if there's one witness who says, I know he's dead, we'll accept that to determine the woman is widow. Now, why? Why would they make that exception? Because when it comes to something of such severity, we're not just going to rely on just this witness. We know that the wife herself, other family members, and the courts are going to do further investigation. But even if all the investigation is circumstantial, if we have one witness, that's sufficient. That will be sufficient. She can be considered a widow and remarry.
So in the case of 9/11, I mean, was it like, well, we were going down the stairs together, and when I came out of the building,
Then you don't know what happened. But if you say we were going down the stairs and as we went down the stairs, I saw him fall 35 flights, that would be good. There were people on 9/11 before their death, they knew, they called their wives. They called their wives and said, I'm in the building is collapsing, I don't think I'm going to come out. And was that sufficient evidence to determine that they were dead for their wives to be considered widow and remarry? And the rabbinic court said yes. That was enough. People who did that
Is that why they accepted so that the widow could remarry?
can get on with her life.
Without a get.
Well, we're gonna get a get from, right?
That's what I meant.
Yeah. Another situation where a single witness is believed, and that's where you're not testifying about a person or something that is relevant to a person, but you're testifying about an item. Person says, oh, you can eat this, it's kosher. I saw this, it came out of that package and that package has the OU on it, that's fine. Person would be believed. Single witness is believed. What happens when there's a court, let's say a monetary issue, and people say, we'll go to a mediator. Go to a mediator, Jewish mediator. It's one person. And the mediator is going to make a decision or whatever, or the mediator is going to base his decision on maybe the testimony of one witness. That's acceptable because mediation isn't really a court. A Jewish court has all the laws and restrictions about witnesses. Mediation is where both parties accept upon themselves to follow what the mediator determines. even if he determines his decision not based on Jewish law. It's not based on,
But
yes.
does mediation fall into what's on Sanhedrin also?
Sanhedrin is the court. They function with the laws of the court. No, are you saying that the laws of the court will recognize a mediator?
Basically, where is mediation covered?
Oh, in the tractate of Sanhedrin,
And Sanhedrin.
where, yes, where there it says that each litigant, let's say you have to have a court of three. So each litigant can choose a judge that he's comfortable with, and the other one is also, and then those two judges choose a third. That's how it works. And we see over there that they can choose, the litigants can choose, and it talks about, let's see what, it does talk about. All right, let's put this together. So we're talking about a little bit legal issues tonight or whatever, but let's see what this is all about. First of all, we said, what does it mean that the witness saw or he knows? How would a witness know if he didn't see? Hearsay is no good. If you were hiding during the confession, it's no good. But what would be if somebody said, you owe me $100 in the presence of these two witnesses. I want you to state that you owe me the 100. And the person says, yes. In the presence of the witnesses, I do owe you the money, but I just don't have it. Wait to work with me. In that case, the witnesses never saw the loan. They cannot testify to the loan, but they can testify that they know that the person owes the money, because they testify to his legal confession. That's what the verse means, that the witness saw or knows. That's how they know. All right, what is the 9th commandment all about? Can't bear false witness, vain witness, stay away from distance from that which is false. This is the only time in the Torah that it uses such a strong language. Midvar sheker, from a word of that is false, tirchak, distance yourself. You know what it means to distance? Run. Run away. Not just don't listen to it, don't be a party to it, run away. Have nothing, stay away. We want nothing to do with it. Why? Because truth. The element of emes, truth. The tractate in Sota 42a says, those who live their lives with lies and deception will not be worthy of greeting the divine presence in the world to come. And that's what the world to come is all about. The world to come, we learned, is the soul connecting with the divine presence. When there is sheker, lies and deception, that is the barrier. It doesn't allow. When it says, do not bear false witness against your fellow, so we learn that against your fellow means that it has to be something relevant to people. Not just that, but it means Jew and Gentile. Don't think that a Jew should not be deceptive to another Jew. Now, I mention this because in Islam, one Muslim to another must be truthful. But with an infidel, you don't have to be truthful. That's unacceptable. Torah says, don't bear a false witness to your fellow man. Every human being is our fellow man, Jew or Gentile. Okay? Why? Why is the pursuit of truth so important? Because without truth, we are subverting social justice. Without social justice, there's no society. Without society, civilization, chaos. The foundation of human existence is social justice and truth. Now, when I say social justice, I'm not talking woke. I'm not talking progressive left all the way. I'm talking about justice. When someone does, when there's a crime, we have to deal with it. When there's a debt, needs to be dealt with. Okay? How do we deal with it? In a proper way, but it has to be dealt with. We've mentioned that the Ten Commandments are on two tablets. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 5 and 5. And we've mentioned that there's a corresponding relationship. Knowing God, the godliness of man. Don't murder. No idolatry. Don't betray God. Don't commit adultery. Don't betray your spouse, your partner. Don't use God's name in vain. Show respect, the reverence, that which is godly. Don't kidnap. Give a person an opportunity to live their life. Number 4, Shabbos. What does Shabbos have to do with false witness? If you remember when we studied Shabbos, the observance of Shabbos is the Jews' testimony that God is the sole creator and master of all that exists. Remember, we defined on Shabbos, we're not supposed to do malacha, not work, malacha. What's malacha? We said malacha is defined as any creative activity by which man demonstrates his human control over his environment. And by refraining from these malachas, we are testifying that we are not the masters over our environment. You know who the master is? God. And 6 days of the week, God says, go ahead, be creative, control your environment. But don't forget, don't let it go to your head. 7th day, take that day to bond with me. The 7th day is our day of testimony. If we're going to be a false witness, if we're going to subvert the truth, then even the Shabbos, what's our testimony? In Micha, the prophet, chapter 7, verse 20, it says, Titain emes liyakov, chesed li'Avraham. Say it in the Nevuah, see it every day. Give truth to Jacob, kindness to Abraham. What does that mean? It means that Abraham was the personification of kindness. Yaakov was the personification of truth. His life was truth. And that's why Yaakov, of all people, the greatest challenge wasn't Esav, his brother, who wanted to kill him. It wasn't Shem, who took his daughter Dinah and violated her. It wasn't that he had to live with the thinking his son Yosef was dead and he spent the end of his life in Egypt. The greatest challenge to Yaakov was 20 years he spent in the house of Lavan. Because Lavan was the great deceiver. Lavan, everything of Lavan was a lie. And here Yaakov, the epitome of truth, had to live with truth in an environment of deception. He perfected truth. We begin Kol Nidre, Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, man, everybody knows the sanctity of Yom Kippur. What could be more holy than Yom Kippur? We fast 25 hours, it's Day of Atonement. Now we begin with Kol Nidre. What is Kol Nidre? Nullifying our vows, oaths, promises that we made and perhaps didn't keep. What does that have to do with Yom Kippur? What does nullification of vows have to do with Yom Kippur? The answer is, what is Yom Kippur? Yom Kippur is not a day of Torah study. It's not a day of charity. It's not a day of, we don't put on a tefillin. What is Yom Kippur? What? It's a day of prayers, introspection, prayer, the tool of our mouths. I'm going to use the great instrument of my mouth, prayer, to say to God, I'm flawed and I'm sorry. And I'm going to make an effort to maybe improve and correct myself. And I need your help. Because every year I do the same thing and every year I seem to stumble. I need your help. That's what Yom Kippur is about. I'm going to use the great power of my mouth How can I do that when this instrument of my mouth has been corrupted by vows and oaths and promises and pledges that I haven't kept? So we start with Yom Kippur. With Yom Kippur, we say to God, every vow, every oath, every promise, every pledge that I made that perhaps I did not fulfill, let it be null and void retroactively in the presence of this congregation and the 3 Torah scrolls that are being held. It's like a court. Holding 3 Torah scrolls is like a court. This way we purify the instrument of our mouths. In Genesis, let's go to page 11. Page 11. Beginning of Genesis, not the very beginning, chapter 2, we want verse 7. God is creating Adam.
And Hashem God formed the man of dust from the ground, and he blew into his nostrils the soul of life, and man became a living being.
He blew into his nostrils the soul of life. He blew an neshama into his nostrils. Man was alive. Look at the commentary on the bottom. You see it all the way down on page 11 on the right, number 7. You want to read that? You see it? He blew in his nostrils. Want to read it? See it?
And he blew into his nostrils the soul of life. God thus made man out of both lower, earthly, and upper, heavenly matter, his body from the dust and his soul from the spirit. In the words of the Zohar, one who blows from within himself, indicating that man's soul is part of God's essence, as it were. This soul made man a living being, which Onkelos defines as a speaking spirit.
Okay. Onkelos says, you know what it means that God blew into his nostrils a living spirit? It means that God gave man the ability to speak, communicate orally, not just make sounds, because a lot of animals make sounds, porpoises make sounds, but to have an intelligent means of communication, language. God gave man the ability to speak. That is what one of the features that distinguishes man from the animal kingdom. Why? Why is it so significant? Because the ability to speak is the sacred tool that is used for prayer, Torah, and kindness. Pray, should verbalize it. Study Torah, read it and say it. The words of Torah are powerful. And we have no idea what can be accomplished with a simple word of kindness. Oh, you look so nice. Simple thing like that. Even if the person says, I know you're lying, but it makes them feel so good. It's nice. Oh, Rabbi, that was such a great class. Even though the guy was sleeping for 75 the whole time. It was such a great. It makes a person feel good. A word of kindness. The mission of man. What is our mission? Our mission is to recognize and connect with our Creator. That means we have to pursue truth. Truth is God. God is truth. Anything that digresses from God, it's not true. God is the ultimate truth. And our mission is pursue that truth. Where did we come from? How did it start? It just evolved, boom, an explosion? I can't accept that. I can't accept that. There's too much of a great design over here to deny that there is not a designer. It's too perfect. Truth in Hebrew is emes, aleph, mem, tov. The Hebrew language, it says God created the Hebrew language, and with this language, with these letters, he created the universe. What's the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet? Aleph. What's the last letter? What's the middle letter?
Yes, ma'am.
Mem. Beginning, middle, and end. From the beginning of our lives, middle of our lives, end of our lives, the truth is the existence of God. And our mission is to pursue that truth. And that's why one should distance from that which is not true, And that's why even if it's false, if it's vain, one who knows witness, you saw, you absolutely no obligation to say, or else we bear the iniquity. Because truth is the symbol of connecting with God. He is truth. This is the ninth commandment. People might ask and say, but I got to go to Sinai to know that a witness shouldn't lie? That you got to go to Sinai for? Doesn't any basic court know that? The answer is it's much deeper than that. The pursuit of truth, essence of man. Okay, I shall stop here.